Welcome back, painting friends. Today we're going to paint a cute little spring duck with some flowers. So you're going to need just about every color: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, pink, black, and white. I always keep my favorite 4 brushes at the studio: my 1-inch flat brush, my 10-6, and 1 round brush. Remember to have a cup of water and a rag for keeping those brushes clean, and let's get started. Remember, if you like what you're seeing here today, make sure that you like and subscribe to my YouTube channel, Painting with a Purpose, and check out our Facebook page, Painting with a Purpose. So I'm going to start with my 1-inch flat brush, and I'm just going to make some angled lines on my canvas. Just a little bit of white paint. That way when we go to add our blue and our purple in, it's just an easy background to mix on. So now that that's done, I'm just going to keep that brush dirty. I'm going to grab in some some blue paint. Just kind of brush it on at an angle, and then just a little bit of purple. I don't want to go too crazy with the purple. The same thing, just kind of brush that on. And then I'm going to start up here at the front, and I'm just going to go back and forth with these lines. I don't want to mix it all the way. I want to have some of that blue and purple showing in the background, but I do want to mix it enough that it looks like a beautiful spring sky. I can take that brush, wipe it off, wash it off, set it aside, and I'm going to grab my number 6 round brush, my number 10 round brush with some white paint, and I am just going to do a couple of little clouds in the sky. So all I'm doing is with that number 6 round brush, just kind of tapping in some white to add some clouds. Now, as clouds work, the lower down they are on your canvas, the smaller they should be, because it means that they look further away. When I make my clouds, I just like to just kind of dot a couple of spots on here. I don't need to go too crazy, and I don't add too many dots knowing that my duck is going to be right in the middle. I don't need to have a whole lot of them, but I do want to have an odd number. All right, that should be good. Let's let this dry. When we come back, we're going to add in that cute little duck. With a dry background, we're now going to go ahead and lay out where that little duck's going to go. I'm going to use white and yellow on my brush at the same time. My yellow sometimes is see-through, especially with a blue background. So our little duck's head is going to be right here. I'm going to start off with an oval. And then from that oval, I'm just going to add a small little bump to the top of it. And I'm going to add another small little bump to the bottom of it, right where his little chin and beak are going to go. So you've got this rounded part, you've got these 2 little sides that kind of stick out, and then that bottom. So his little neck is just going to go kind of right down below that. And then, of course, his body shape is just going to kind of be a big, huge bump down here. He's just a sweet little baby duck, okay? And then his little tail, I'm just going to make a small couple little lines that stick out there. So let's go ahead and paint all this in yellow. Now, as that's starting to dry, we can go ahead and add some of our greenery, and we're not going to put any greenery in front of his belly yet, but we can do the outside edges. So I'm going to take some white paint. I'm going to use a lot of white in this painting, and some green paint on my brush. So I've got white and green about 50-50, and I'm going to make just a couple of the stems for our flowers. I'm using my number 6 round brush, and I'm barely letting that brush touch the canvas. I want it to be a very light green color. Think spring green, very light green. And then with our tulips, they have thicker leaves on them. So I'm going to start right at the base. I'm just going to kind of make one kind of go out, and I'm going to make the next one go a little bit right next to it and just kind of fill that in. I'll show you that again. With our tulips, we're just going to start at the top, and we're going to make one side of it just go out a little bit, and the other side's going to start at the point and then just get a little bit fatter and rejoin. Just fill that in. Now that those are finished, I'm going to grab some regular green, and I'm going to make a couple more lines that kind of come up in front of these. In fact, I can even put some behind. Watch, if I want one behind it, all I have to do is go to my flower and then stop and kind of jump over it. All right, now I'm going to zoom you in right here. Let's talk about these tulips. All right, so for our tulips, and you can make your tulips any color you want, but I am going to make a red, pink, and white tulip. So I'm going to start with my red paint. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a curved line that goes from the tip of my stem up and then make it a little bit rounder on the backside. So I'm going to do two of those. So a curved line up and then a rounder special part right there. Okay, and then I'm not going to use any more red. I'm going to switch over to pink, and I'm just going to kind of brush some pink in. What that's going to do is it's going to keep the edges darker, but the inside a little bit lighter. I am wiping my brush off every time I grab more pink just to get rid of that extra red that's on there. And then in the center, I'm going to take pink and I'm going to make a little bump up and back down. And then I'm going to take some white paint at the very tips of all of these and just kind of brush some of that down. And you can do this with any color you want with your tulips. You can make them orange and yellow or all yellow, totally up to you. Then I'm going to darken that center up just a little bit as it kind of goes up towards that middle tulip petal. And then down here at the base, I'm going to take some more of that green and white mix. And I'm going to just kind of extend this top right here. Kind of hold that flower. And I can even wipe off some of that white and grab some darker green. And add that right to the very tip of it. All right, let's go ahead and knock out the rest of our tulips. I did add a second layer of yellow to my duck just to make sure that nice and covered. And then I also dried it. So let's go ahead and add some highlights and some lowlights to our duck so that she can look ready for her little spring photo shoot. All right, I've got my number 6 round brush. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab some white and yellow, about 50-50 white and yellow, and I'm going to lighten up her chest area right here. So white and yellow, lighten up that little chest area. Also going to lighten up the tippy top of her head. And then maybe right along these cheeks right here. And I can even add a little bit more to this tail. And then I'm going to go in with the regular yellow, and I'm going to add a darker layer down at the base of her belly. I'm going to bring in those up. I can even take some white and without mixing it in, just do some really nice white highlights without mixing too much. It is, you know, feathers, so it's okay if you get some texture in there. I'm going to do the same thing up here on the top of her head. A little bit of light lines for some texture. Go ahead and give her neck a darker color. All right, she's going to be so cute when we get those eyes on there. But while that's drying, let's talk about some more flowers. I love those little crocuses that kind of pop up every year. And so what we're going to do is we are going to take the back of a pencil and we're going to take some purple paint with a little bit of white on it. So purple and white. And on these extra little vines that we put up there, watch those crocuses kind of start at the top and they get a little bit whiter as you bring them down. I'm going over my stamps to make sure that I kind of mix those colors a little bit more. All right, now we're going to make a couple of even taller greens. Okay, so I'm going to put one right back here behind this tulip. Maybe one right here behind our little duck. And the last one's going to go right over here. And these are the daffodils. So I'm going to zoom us in. I think I'm going to zoom us into this one. And let's see how we're going to paint these daffodils. So for our daffodils, I'm going to take yellow paint and I am going to make the petals, which are kind of pointed at the tip and they get a little bit wider as they come into the flower. Now, if you want to make your daffodils so they're like kind of head on, I'll show you one of those too. But after I have that on there, I'm going to grab just a little bit of orange paint and right here at the base, I'm going to add some orange and I'm going to just kind of pull that orange out into my yellow. I'm going to wipe that brush off. I'm going to grab some white and at the tip, I'm just going to pull some white in towards that orange. After those are on there, I'm going to take some orange paint and I'm going to create a little funnel. Okay, so it's going to be smaller at the base and a little bit wider at the top. Grab some white paint and make just a ziggy-zaggy line across that top. And then I could just use those same colors. So that orange, that yellow, that white, and just kind of paint this in until I get it where I love it. I'm going to take a little bit of red and I'm going to go right underneath here with that red. Follow that down. Maybe just put a little bit of red here at the bases to show that those are separate from the flower. All right, let's do another one to show you what like a front view would look like. All right, front view, watch this, I'm going to take the same kind of idea. So I'm just going to make a circle here so I know generally where the center of my tulip's going to be. And then again, I'm going to start here with my edges being skinnier than where the base meets in. And go ahead and paint these in with that yellow and white mix. A little bit of orange at that base again. I'm just going to kind of pull some of that orange out. I don't want too much orange, so if you get too much orange, stop and add some yellow or some white to kind of tame it down. And I'm going to take some white from the tips and kind of bring it down towards the flower petals. And then the center, I'm going to take my orange. I'm just going to kind of make like a squiggly line around it, kind of fill that in a little bit. I could take some white in that very center and kind of add to that. And then I'm even going to take a little bit of red and go right around that edge. Okay, let's get our last one done. Let's move on to our duck's face. I've got my number 6 round brush and I've got some orange paint, and I'm going to start in with his beak. So his beak is going to be right here in between these kind of two cheekbones, and I'm going to make what's going to start out as like a little smiley face. And from there, it's going to kind of come out to a little side bump. I'm going to go in just a little bit. And then as it comes down into the beak shape, it's going to extend just a little bit. And then it's going to have a really nice curve. I'm going to take a little bit of white paint and just right along the top, I'm just going to lighten it up a little bit. And I'm going to take a small amount of red and just go right along those edges, give them just a nice little dark definition. I'm going to take some black paint on my finger. I always like to make my circles with my finger. I think I get a much better circle. And I'm going to put one eye just to the left of his beak and the other eye just to the right. I can then take a little bit of watered down paint on my number 6 round brush. Anytime I make little teeny tiny detail lines, I do like to water my paint down a little bit. So a little bit of watered down black paint. And then right at the very tip of his eyes, I'm just going to make a small little triangle. And then at the back of his eyes, I'm just going to give it a very gentle point. That's how we're changing it from being a circle to being an eye shape, is by adding those 2 little spots. While I still have that black on my brush, I'm going to go ahead and take one little oval line right here and one right here. All right, let's zoom out and get ready to add in some grass at the bottom and of course her crown of flowers. To fill in the base down here, I'm going to use some green paint and some white paint on my brush. And I'm just going to start at the bottom and just kind of flick some lines up. This is going to be my grass that this cute little duck is sitting in. Plus it just kind of cleans up the bottom of the canvas and brings it all together. So just a couple little flicks up. Some can be taller, some can be shorter, some can be greener, some can be wider. You have all the choices when you're doing this. Now let's go ahead and zoom us back into her head so that before we do that, let's go ahead and add her wings in. So I'm going to take a little bit of yellow paint and a little bit of orange paint on my palette and mix those together. I'm looking for a darker yellow color, but I don't want it to be super, super, super orange. So a darker yellow color by mixing some orange and some yellow together. And then I'm going to take that color and I'm just going to make a little curved line right here for her wings. And I can even go in and add a couple of little lines just to kind of suggest that there might be some more feathers over there. I really like this color. I might add some more in other places too. Maybe underneath her chin. Even around her little face. All right, so let's move on to this adorable little crown. So I'm going to take some green paint and just make a small, in fact, I'm going to do green and white. Make it a light color again. Some green and white paint, and I'm just going to make a small little crown around her head. And with that crown, I can add a couple of little lines for greenery to kind of come off. I do want to make sure I don't take over her eyes too much. I want to keep those kind of open, but I also want to have an odd number. So I've got 3. I still think I want more than that. One right up here in front of that. Okay. Once those are on, I'm going to take some of that green and white mix. I'm going to add a little bit of yellow to it just to kind of change it up a little bit. So I've got green, white, and yellow mixed on my palette, and I am going to just take those colors and just kind of drop little lines on here, or little dots on here. This is going to be my greenery. I'm going to take a little bit of green and I'm just going to add a couple of regular, nice dark green leaves around. And these are leaves that are just going to be, look at this, it's like a frowny face and a smiley face kind of mixed together. So just a couple of those. Then let's go ahead and add the highlights to her eyes. I think it's dry enough. We're about to find out. I'm going to take a little bit of white paint on my number 6 round brush, and I'm going to make just a small little line that kind of curves up over her eye. And then I'm going to use the back of that brush, and just right down here in the corner, I'm going to put a small little white dot. Then with that white on here, I'm going to go ahead and add a couple of little white highlight lines just around her beak. I think I might want to try to water some of those down. So I'm going to grab some water on my brush and just kind of pull some of those colors off. I think it was a little bit too much. One thing cool about acrylic paints is if you get too much on there, you can just grab a little bit of water and kind of pull some of that off. All I'm doing now is just kind of wiping off, taking it to my towel, wiping some of it off. And I might add a little bit more orange right in there just to kind of clean that up a little bit. That's the best thing about painting is you don't ever have to say it's done. You can just keep adding to it until you like it. Okay, that looks much better. So cute. I'm going to go in and add some highlights on some of my flowers and my leaves while her crown is drying. So on top of the tulips, I could just add a small little white line as a highlight. On the tops of some of these little purple guys, I could just add a little bit of white. And I can even put a little bit of white right down into my leaves as well. So some highlight time. On my tulips, I can add a little bit of white on some of those edges as well. I meant tulips, I meant daffodils, as well as the tops of my little trumpets. So let's add some highlights to this while her face is drying. As far as her head goes, I'm now going to take some of that orange yellow mix and I'm going to make some really small little lines that just kind of pop off her head every once in a while, help it look a little bit more like feathers, little duckling feathers, those really sweet little wispy ones. You can even have those kind of just come right down her chin and her neck. Same thing, just little small little wispy lines. Everything being told to you truthfully and honestly, I put a big, huge daisy right there and it did not work. So I promptly covered it up. So let's add some more flowers. First of all, you'll see that I already added a couple little roses, and how I did that was I just took my finger with some white paint and a little bit of pink paint on it. So a little bit of white, a little bit of pink. And then I just took that color and just kind of swirled it together a little bit. And then I grabbed my number 6 round brush with some pink paint on it and I added a small little swirl to it. Okay, so that's how I made those. I am going to try, because I really do want daisies on here, but I do think I made my daisies way too big. I am going to try to do some more daisies, but I'm going to make them go up a little bit higher than I originally had them. So a little bit of white paint, and I'm going to start them right over here, and I'm just going to make these really long, skinny, white petals. And these really long, skinny little white petals are just going to kind of go around a center area, which I will add some yellow to in a minute. Already liking this a whole lot more. My last one came all the way down onto his nose and I just knew it was not in the right location. Now, as these are still a little bit wet, I'm going to take the smallest amount of a light blue paint. Okay, so a little bit of blue, a lot of white, and I'm just going to kind of go over some of these edges with that color. You don't need to have it be a whole lot, but I do just want to add a little bit of blue to it. If you always add too much blue, you can always add some more white. Easy to fix. And then I'm just going to take some of that white paint and that yellow paint and just kind of add a little bit of yellow towards the center of my flower. That already looks so much better. Ooh, good, dodged a bullet there. That made me a little bit nervous. I'm going to take a little bit of light blue on my brush, no white with it, just a little bit of light blue, and I'm now going to just kind of add a small little outline on the edge of this, just so it pops a little bit. And as always, if you add too much glue, you just go in with your white. Just gonna cover some of that up. I'm gonna add a little bit of orange paint, and just right around the edge, I'm just gonna kind of tap a little bit of orange right along that edge of the center. Let it blend a little bit as it comes back in. And I think I'm gonna take a little bit of yellow and pink paint and make a couple more little flowers on her little crown. So I've got yellow and pink on there, which means I'm going to grab my number 6 round brush and add some white for my swirl. Add a couple highlights on top of this greenery here. And then add a little bit of white right in here at the top of the center of that flower. And there, I think we have it, this cute, sweet little baby duck. I'm gonna grab a color that shows up well on my canvas and sign my name. Now remember, I never get to see what you're painting at home unless you take a picture of it and post it on my Facebook page, Painting with a Purpose. Make sure that you like and subscribe to my YouTube channel, Painting with a Purpose, so that you are kept up to date on all of our tutorials. And remember, as always, stay kind, stay creative, and stay safe. Have a great day, friends. Bye now.